Hello. All right. There we are. Couldn't get my camera or my microphone to kick on. All right, so we're back here and we are working on a live series, and this is just a personal project of mine that I want to build, and I just kind of invited you guys to sit next to me and watch as I go. And if you guys have any questions at all, please feel free to ask them in the chat, both on Rumble and on YouTube. We're streaming to both services. Hopefully everything's going fine there. And I don't have too much time tonight, so I think what I want to try to do tonight is get if we can get the password set as part of the user registration, and if we can get the login stuff working and maybe even returning a token on that, I think we'd be in good shape with the registration login part of this system. So just to explain what I'd like to do, the way I want this to work is that I want people to be able to register with very little barrier to entry. So they don't even have to pick a password when they register. What they're going to do is just put in their first name, last name, and email address. After that, what we're going to do is go ahead and register them, and then we will send them an email to confirm their email. They click on that link and that will take them, it will confirm their email, and then it'll take them to a screen that forces them to set a password for the first time. So we have a column in our database called force password reset. And so when the user is first created, the user, they're not email confirmed and they're not, they have force password reset set. So the application won't let them do anything until those two things are done. Once that's done, we'll forward them to the home screen where they can use the application like normal. So that's the process we're kind of working on, and we're just working on the back end right now. So let's jump over to my screen here, and let me just move my chat windows down because my chat windows need to be next to my code base or my IDE here so I can see it, because I'm going to be here most of the time. All right, so I think I'm ready to go. If you guys are, let me know in the chat and we will continue on. Let me get a drink here. Right on. Okay, so a couple outstanding things we still need to do. We still need to implement this toArray method, and we need to add a couple new endpoints here to our auth controller. So we've already done the confirm email. So this will be when they click on the link in their email, it'll take them and it will send an API request to this endpoint here, which will confirm their email. So let's go ahead and take a look at the database really quick. And in the database, I have a user here. You can see I don't have a password set. There's no last login at date, but we do have force password reset set to 1. And we did run the email confirmation last time with the endpoint, so that's set to 1. So in this state, this user would be forced to set a password. So let's go ahead and create an endpoint in order to do that. And if you remember right, we, in a previous video, we set up a validator called password strength validator. So we're going to be using this password strength validator in order to make sure that the password is strong. So let's go ahead and create an endpoint. So to first do that, we have to add a route, and we're going to add a route to our auth group here, and this will be a post method. So we'll say auth post, and I want this to be set password, and it's going to go to the auth controller class, and we'll do set password as the method name. This is an unauthorized route here. We haven't done an authorization yet, which we'll get to, but this is for our guests, so any of our guests can hit these endpoints. Okay, once we've gotten that, we can go to the auth controller now, and let's just create a new controller method. So public function set password. And all the controller actions in Slim get 3 parameters. We got request, response, and arguments. Okay. So here we're going to be taking in the parsed body here, and this is going to have, let's see, request, get parsed body. All right. And then let's see what we want to do. We have the users. For save. Just trying to think of where I want to put the validation for this, because we don't want to check the validation on the password every time the user object is saved. What we want to do is only when okay, here's what we're going to do. I think we're going to try something new here. Let me check. Run validation. Okay. Yeah. So we have our data, and we're going to do 2 things. Number 1, we're going to set up, we're going to grab the password, and that's going to be equal to get else, which is a method or a function we made in the last video. And we're going to, from the data array, we're looking for password. The other one that we're looking for here is confirm. And we'll call this, yeah, we'll just call this confirm, I guess. We could do confirm password, but, or password confirm. Then what we're going to do is we are going to, when they set the password, let's see, they need a token, and this token is going to allow us to get the user. So let's look at our database. We have access tokens and we have email tokens. Email tokens are what we're using for the email confirmation links. But we need another table that's really similar to this that's going to store the password tokens. And let me think. Yeah. As part of the, so what we're going to do with this is, as part of the email confirmation, we will create a password reset token. If we don't add a password reset token, this allows anyone to set the user's password at first. So I want to make sure that we're not doing that. So let's go ahead and create a new table that we're going to call password tokens, and or password resets rather. And on the password resets, we're going to have just a user ID and a token. It's going to be just like the email confirmations table. So let's jump down here, and I'm going to Docker PS to see my containers, and we're going to exec into this here by doing Docker exec -it. Here, let me blow this up a little bit. Docker exec -it, and then our ID and bash. Once we've done that, you can see that we are tunneled into our Docker container. And from here, it takes us to the var /HTML directory, which is what our source folder is directed to. So we need to go inside of the API directory. And in here we have our commands, so we can run PHP runner, and we're going to do PHP runner, and we're going to generate a new migration. Oops, what's the problem there? Permission denied. Interesting. Dev. Let me just check my user ID. I hope we didn't build a Docker container with the wrong user ID. So for that, I'm gonna do who am I? And I'm gonna pipe that into ID. So I am user 1000, so that's the default on Linux. Shouldn't have a error creating that directory. So migrations 2023. It created this before. We had this command working before. What's the deal here? Generate migration command. That's crazy. Oh, the joys of setting up your project and working through all the little bugs in the beginning. It's awesome. So Curtis is my user, which is ID 1000. This is 775, I believe. LSLA migrations is 777. It's probably a little loose. CD 2023. Okay, interesting. So it created this directory for October with very few permissions. Why would it do that? Let me go ahead and delete that and try again. I have to. Oh, wait. Okay, let's try to run that command again. See what kind of permissions it gives it. Okay. So 10, 14. That's kind of correct. It's going off UTC time, so it is 10:14 for me right now. Cool, so we got a migration here. And this migration, we're gonna add a new table. So I'm gonna put, and I want to call this password resets. And then we'll do this, create table, pass that table name in. And then we'll just do this, add column. And I'd like to add a column named user ID. We're gonna give this a type of big int. And we're gonna add another column. We'll call this token. Token will be a varchar, so we'll call that a string, and we'll give it a size of 75. All right, and we're gonna need an index because we're gonna be searching by this token. So let's add an index for that token. So the table, let me double check what my columns, yeah. So the column I want to add here is just token. We'll also add an index for user, because in a different scenario we will we'll go ahead and search by user ID as well. And then let's add a foreign key to this, I guess. And this foreign key is going to be user ID. That's going to reference our users table, and it's going to reference our ID column. Okay, looks good. And then for our down method, we can simply just drop this table. So this drop table, and we named it password resets. So when I write new migrations, I like to run the migrations, and then I like to run them down to make sure my down and up methods work. But I can't remember if we actually created our down method yet or not. Let's find out. PHP runner. We did. Okay, cool. So we'll just run PHP runner migrations run, and that will add our table. So let's just double check that now. Yep, here's our passwords reset table. Let's just double check everything. We got our columns here. We have a foreign key. Reference tables users, perfect. Let's see, user ID. Okay, looks good. Let's check our indexes. We have the token and the user ID. Good. All right, so that looks good. So let's go ahead and reverse this now. So what to do to reverse that is just grab the migration name, and we'll run PHP runner migrations down, paste that in there, and it successfully dropped the table, and it says migrations reversed. So let's just double check that. I'm gonna refresh, and that table's gone. Perfect. But with that, we'll just run the migration back up, and now I know my migration is good to be committed, and other developers or myself can run this in different environments, and if I need to reverse it, I can. All right, so pretty happy with that. But now we need a model for that new table. So we created a script for that, and that was called generate model. So we just do PHP runner generate model, and we got to give it the model name, which not the model name, but we're going to give it the table that it connects to. So we called that table password resets. Just want to double check that. Yeah, password underscore resets is the table name, and now it says it generated that model for us. So if we look at our models, and boom, here it is. Now, by the boilerplate here for this table is a little useless. We don't need timestamps because we didn't put timestamps on here. We're going to actually delete these. We could keep timestamps on this table, but I don't. For now, I'm just going to get rid of them. So the only thing we have here is an ID. We don't have any of these created at or updated at. So we'll do user ID, and the other property it's going to get is the token, like that. Soft delete is going to be false, so I can just remove that, and then this is correct. So if we want to add validation here, we can validate that the user ID and the token is, it'd be a really good idea to validate that the token is actually unique as well. So let's go ahead and do that. Public function validator. Thank you IDE, but I did not want you to stub that for me. And so what we'll do here is we're going to say this run validation, and we'll do a new required validator. And so we'll pass this model into that. And for the field, we're going to go ahead and do token. And for the message, we'll say token is required. Copy that down. We'll do the same thing for user ID, although we don't really need that. We could create a new validator to make sure this user actually exists, but I don't want to take the time to code that right now. So let's add another validator, and this one is going to check that token is unique. So we'll do run validation, new unique validator, and I'm going to go ahead and throw that in a group import up here, just because that's the way I like to see that in my code instead of on separate lines. All right. And then for this, we'll pass in the model. The field here is just going to be token. Wait a minute. Yeah. Token. And then the message will be token already exists. All right. Okay, good. Pretty happy with that. So now what we want to be able to do is go back to our auth here, and inside this confirm email, down here where we delete the email confirmations, let's go ahead and create a new token. So let's see if we have anything already set up here. We have the create email confirmation on the user object. So let's go to users model. So that creates a SHA-1. We can add this here. Yeah, let's go ahead and add it here. Public function create password reset. And we'll do the same thing where we say token is equal to a SHA-1 of this user ID. We'll just add time to it. We could do some other stuff in an algorithm to make this a little less guessable or something, but I think this is probably fun. And then let's do reset is going to equal new password resets. Reset user ID will be equal to this ID. Reset token is equal to token. Success is equal to reset save. And then we're going to return success reset or false. Okay, so now we have a create password reset. So in our auth controller, inside this confirm email, we have our user object already right here. And so what we'll do is let's go ahead and do user create, dang it, what did I call that? Create password reset. Been a long day, guys. All right. And right here is where we could do this a couple different ways. Number one, we could no, can't do that. I think what we'll do though is right here in the success on this API response, inside this confirm email, I think what we're going to do is we're going to return the reset token here, and that will be this reset token here will be let's see, we have success. I think we need to also set success here equal to not reset. And then right here we'll do reset token or false. Yeah. All right, so now let's imagine the flow. The user registers. They give us their first, last name, and email. Then we're going to send out an email to them that has their email confirmation link in it. They click on that link. That link makes an API call to this confirm email endpoint, which confirms that their email token is true, updates them to confirmed, and then deletes their email confirmation, and then also it creates a password reset and returns that to the front end. The front end is going to hold on to that token and then take them to a form that's going to ask them, that form will ask them to, so the form's going to ask them to enter a password. When they enter the password, the set password, we're going to get back, now we need a token on this endpoint. From the post key. And with that, we're going to be able to find the user if there's a token and a user there. Okay, so that's good to go. You know, now that I think about it, we probably do want some timestamps on this, because we're going to reuse the same table for when someone does a email reset to their, like, yeah. That's hard. That's tough. We can add it later. We don't need to get every single feature in right now. This is what's hard about developing a piece of software sometimes, is you want to do everything, but we don't need to do everything right now. Let's just get some stuff working, and we can always improve upon it and iterate on it. We don't want to over-engineer something we don't need right now. Okay, so we have our password and our confirm. So the couple things that we're going to do here. Number one, let's just make sure that their token it exists and it's good. So let's go ahead and grab the reset by searching on the password resets model, and we're going to find first, and on the find first method, we're going to pass in some conditions, and the conditions will be that the token is equal to a bound parameter, and then we're going to bind that parameter will be token here, like that. Then what we're going to do is, if there's no reset there, we're going to return an API error. We're going to tell them that the token is not valid, something like that. The next thing we're going to do, if they have, so this is a guard statement, this is going to return, right? So we can just add logic after this. If in fact they have a reset, now we need to find the user. And so what we'll do is we'll say user is equal to users. And at this point, we're going to be able to use the find by ID method, and we can just pass in the reset user ID like that. And now we do one more guard statement, and we're going to say if not user, return this API error response, and then we're going to tell it that the user is not found. Okay, they should probably never hit this or this if they're not doing anything funky. This should be good to go. But I like putting a few guard statements there like that. Let's just check the streams and make sure they're still working. Looking good on Rumble. I think we're looking good on YouTube. Okay, yeah. Awesome. All right, sorry about that. I just like to check every now and then because I actually set up a restreaming server in my house, and so instead of paying like Restreamio or anything like that, if I wanted to stream to multiple services, I just stream to my own server, and then that streams out to multiple things. I just set up a quick Docker Nginx thing, and I'm just using Nginx to restream it. All right, so the next thing that I want to do here is we are going to go ahead and do some validation on this. So we're going to say user password, and so this password, now we're going to set this password. I think what we need to do is actually set another property in this where we'll do something like a public reset password is equal to false by default. And then in this validator here, we could say if this reset password, we're going to add a couple more pieces of validation here. We're going to say this run validation, and we're going to put a required validator on here, of course, and then we're going to check the field is going to be password, and we're going to tell them that the password message password is required. The next thing that I want to do is we need to set up make sure that this is strong password. So we're going to say this run validation, and now we're going to bring in the password strength validator. And so the field here is password. And then if this fails, we're going to put a message in that says password not secure, something like that. We're going to have some front end that will like be a prettier message and give them some real-time feedback on how secure their password is and if it's even going to pass this. But if they send it, if it somehow gets sent to the API, we don't want our validation to only be on the front end. So I always do back end validation. It just protects the integrity of the application and the database and everything. And then the front end validation, I just see that as like UX improvement over the back end validation. It hopefully stops them from seeing the backend validation, but the backend validation can be a stopgap on that. The next thing that we need to do is we need to make sure that their password matches the confirm. So there's a couple problems here. Is we don't have the confirm passed in here, so that's okay though. We're going to use this run validation, and now we're going to use a new matches validator that gets this. And then the field here is going to be, let's look at this. Yeah, the field is going to be password. And then it needs a rule. And the rule is going to be what we're trying to match. And so we're just going to pass in this confirm like that. And then we're going to give it a message of passwords do not match. All right. So let's go back to the controller here. And what we're going to do is we're going to say user password. Well, first of all, we need to tell it that they are setting their password. So reset password equals true. And that will make the validation work. Or it'll actually make it into that validation. And then we're going to say user password. And we're going to pass password into this. And then we also are going to pass user confirm. And we're going to pass confirm down into that. The next thing that we're going to do is inside of the user object here, we're going to add something to this before save. And the before save is going to be if they're resetting their password. So if this reset password, then what we want to do is before save, but after validation, we want to hash that password. We don't want to store their password as a plain text password in the database. We want to go ahead and hash that. So the way that we're going to do that is we're going to say this password is equal to, and then we're going to use the password hash algorithm that's built into PHP, and then we're going to pass it this password, which will be plain text for the first parameter. The second parameter, I think it's bcrypt. Yeah, password bcrypt. We're going to use that, so we just pass that in as a constant, and that will hash our password. And then when it actually saves, it'll be hashed in the database. But we only want to do that when they're trying to reset the password. We don't ever want to try to hash a hash, you know what I mean? Because we'll wreck people's passwords. Okay, so let's see. Let's just kind of read through what we have here. Then what we're going to do is we're going to try to save this. So success is equal to user save. And we're going to say if not success, we'll do another guard statement. I like guard statements, by the way, if you can't tell. We'll do a response. And then here we're going to do user get error messages. And we'll say password cannot be saved. Otherwise, we're just going to return, well, no, we're not. We need to delete that token. So let's do reset, delete. And then let's do return this API response. And we're going to tell them success is equal to success here. I think that's all we need to do there. So I think that's done. Let's go ahead and run through the process. I'm going to go to my users table and let's just delete Tony out of here. Save that. And then let's try to register her again. So we're going to register her and we get back a success message here. So she's going to be user ID 7, but you can tell here that her forced password reset is 1 and her email confirmed is 0. That's what I want to see. The next thing that we want to do is we want, let's go ahead and do the confirmation and see if it creates that token for us. So we have this confirm email here, and I'm just going to grab her token out of the database because we're not doing emails just yet. Okay, here's her token. So copy that. We'll throw that in here. Perfect. We'll hit send, and something broke. Line 46, I made a silly mistake. Just need to use this ID. And let's try it all over again. Let's go back here, refresh. I think we're gonna have to delete this email confirmation. Go here, we'll delete this. Okay. Sometimes this gets a little screwy. What? Oh, I got a foreign key. So did it actually create? Yes. No. Gosh, just give me my reset table. Okay, the reason we can't delete that is because we put a foreign key on this user ID. So that constraint is forcing us to make a decision there, which is good. So I'm gonna go ahead and delete this, and now we'll be able to go back to our user and delete that user row. Okay, so the there is one more thing I do want to add in a little bit as part of the registration process. And in fact, before we start this again, let's go ahead and talk about that. So in our users table, you notice I added an ID and an account ID. When someone registers, they are going to be the account owner. They're going to be able to add their family members and stuff like that to their accounts, which they'll have their own user IDs, but their parent account will be this account ID here. And so what we need to do there is on the registration process, we're going to have to do a double save, I think. And so what we're going to do is after the success here, we're just going to say user account ID is equal to user ID, and then we're just going to save that user again. I know that's a little screwy to do a double save like that, but it's a fast transaction, and I don't think it's a big deal for right now. We might be able to do something with, like, depending on the database, I'd have to look up how to do it, but some databases allow you to see what we could start this in some sort of transaction and see what the ID will be, and we could set that account ID before we do the initial save. But we'll just do it this way. It's fine. All right, so let's test all that. We'll do a registration here. Tony is ID 8, and she's also the account ID 8. So since those two match, we know she's the account owner. She doesn't have a password yet, which is good and what I expected. So let's go and let's do the email confirmation process now. So I'm gonna go back to email confirmations. We're gonna grab this token, and we're gonna go ahead and confirm the email here. Hopefully we don't get an error this time. Okay, so then we get this reset token sent back to us. So this is the password reset token this time. Let's just double check to make sure that it deleted her email confirmation, and it did. But now we have a password reset, or we should, and we do, for that user 8, and this is her token. All right, so now using this token, let's go ahead and create a new endpoint here, our request. And this will be reset password. This is going to be a post, and we're going to send this to the base URL, API v1, auth, and this will be reset password. For the authorization, we're going to have no authorization because this is an unauthorized thing, endpoint. And then we're going to do content type. That will be an application JSON. And then for our body, we're going to send raw JSON. And what we're going to do here is let's send password. And first, let's just test our validation. I'm going to send a really insecure password. And our confirm is going to match that, except for I'm going to make it not match. And then we need our token. So our token is here. And so I'm going to grab that token from the response of the confirm email. And then we'll go ahead and hit send. And our reset password is not found. So let's check the, that's because I called it set password here. Let's go ahead and do reset everywhere. Because I'm going to reuse this method, I think. For forgot password as well. Okay, so success was false and we got some errors. We got this one saying that the password is not secure and the passwords do not match. So we had 2 errors to do with this. So let's go ahead and make the passwords match. And now we just get password not secure. So let's put a more secure password in here. Like, I don't know, I'm just going to make something up that should pass. And now we just get passwords do not match. So let me paste those in. And then we get success true. So let's go check everything out in the database and make sure it looks right. First of all, if we refresh here, yes, the password reset goes away so that that token can't be reused. If we go to the users table and refresh, we can see that we have our user here and the password has been hashed. So that's good news. Oh, we forgot one key step. So what we want to be able to do is we want to turn this forced password reset off. So that's one last thing that we need to do here is in this reset password, we need to tell it if this is successful. I guess we'll do another double save here. So if it's successful and only if it's successful, then what we're going to do is say user force. Why is my ID not picking this up? Force password reset. We're going to set that to 0 and then we're going to say user save. But another key distinction here is we also needed to not do the password reset stuff again. So what we're going to do here is before we save, we're going to say user, and then we're going to say reset password equal to false. Glad I caught that because I would have definitely forgot that most of the time and been like, what the heck's going on here? My hash doesn't work. Okay. So I think what we'll do is we're just going to recreate that row. So let's refresh this. I'm going to add a row. Our user ID was 8, and then I'm going to take our token that we already posted here. I'm just going to add that back to the database and save that. And then we're going to try again. We're just going to send that request again. So we get true again. So let's go and check it. Okay, we got a different hash now. And forced password reset is 0 and email confirmed is 1 and active is 1. So this user is ready to roll now. They're ready to log in. Okay, and our access tokens are kind of next, but we're not there yet. Perfect. And it deleted our password reset. Okay, I'm good with that. So let's go ahead and we'll get started just really quickly. How much time? Okay. If you guys have any questions, by the way, please post it in the chat and I will do my best to answer any kind of question you have. But let's create a login, because the next thing that would happen in this flow is after they have set their password, we're going to send them to the login screen to have them log in. So we want them to log in, auth controller class. I don't think we're going to be able to finish the entire login process, but we can at least check that our password stuff is hashing correctly. All right, so we have that endpoint added to our routes. And so let's add a new method here. We'll call it public function login. It gets a request, a response, and arguments. Did I put that as a post? Yes, I did. Okay. So then again, we're going to get our data, and that's going to be equal to a request. Get parsed body. And then we're going to say email is equal to get else data email, and we'll do password is equal to get else data password. And then I think what we'll do is we'll just do some manual stuff here. So we'll say if empty email, let's just do errors is equal to empty array, and we're going to say if empty email, then we're going to say errors email is equal to email is required. And then we'll do the same thing. We'll say if empty password errors password equals password is required. And then we'll just do a guard statement here that says if not empty errors, then we're going to return this API error, response errors, and login failed. Okay. The next thing that we want to check is we're going to find a user by this email address. So we're going to say user is equal to here's the thing, when someone's logging in and you're doing validation on the login part, we don't want to tell them what's wrong necessarily with their login stuff, because if you give too much description, then attackers might be able to more easily know if their password's wrong or if the email's wrong or something like that. So I'm not going to tell them if the user doesn't exist, but if the user doesn't exist, we're going to just give them an error, okay? The next thing we'll do is we're going to look that up by users, find first, and for our conditions here, we're just going to say where the email is equal to the bound parameter. We always want to bind our parameters, especially when they're coming from a form. And we're just going to bind that value, the email value right there. So I think what let's see. how do I want to obfuscate this? If there's no user by that email address, we don't want to tell them that. So I think what we'll do is we're going to say if not user, or if not password verify. And what we're going to do here is we're going to pass in the password as the first parameter, and the second parameter will be user password. Okay, so if there's not a user, or if the password doesn't match, doesn't verify, which this password verify is just a built-in PHP function. If what they pass in doesn't pass, then we're going to return this API error response, and I'm going to say login failed. And then what we're going to do here in this error message is we're going to send back email. We're going to say, we don't want to tell them if the password's wrong, and we don't want to tell them if there's not a user. So we're just going to say bad login credentials. And we're going to actually give it the same exact error message back for the password field. Okay. So then if we get past this guard statement, we're going to actually do the login. So I'm going to put a comment here to do the login like that. And then after that, we're going to come down, and then we're going to eventually return this API response success. It's going to be true, and then we're going to give them back a token, which we'll make up in a minute. We don't have that yet, but we're gonna have to do some logic. I don't think we're gonna possibly get that done. Because I didn't want to go too long tonight, about an hour, which we are at now. But so let's see. Let's create a new request. We're gonna call this login. That'll be a post. Go to base URL, API v1, login. For our headers, we're going to do a content type application JSON. Body is going to be raw JSON object again, and we're going to email. Email. I'm going to leave that empty for a moment, and we're just going to test out our validation. There we go. Let's send that. Oops. Wrong. I need an auth there. What? Base URL API v1. Base URL API v1 auth login. Did I not add that route yet? Post login. I did. Public function login. Oh, I'm missing my / there. Guys, I'm kind of sad because we got error messages back there. I'm almost 43, which is kind of old. Well, it's really old. Or at least I feel really old. I got a lot of gray in my beard. But all of a sudden this week I've started noticing I can't read my screen very well all of a sudden. And I've always had perfect vision. So I'm gonna have to get an eye exam, I think. You guys might see me with glasses soon, so I'm probably gonna look even stupider pretty soon than I look now. Not saying that people with glasses look stupid, but I'm pretty sure I'm gonna look stupid if I have glasses. So for the email now, let's try Parham Tony at mailinator.com. Just make sure that's what I gave her. And then the password, I'm going to copy from here because I won't ever remember that. Paste it. And what we're going to do is I'm going to take away the A at the end, and we're going to see if this gives us an error message. Okay, so now we get error messages back that there's a bad login credentials, which is what I expected. We'll add that A back in now. And now it still tells us bad login credentials. Well, that's no good. That is no good. That probably means at some point, let's look at our users model. If this reset password, okay. Let's just reset our password one more time. I'm gonna go back here. I'm gonna grab this token. I'm just gonna add this to the database manually to our password resets. Add a new row for our user ID 8 token, save, and let's try to send this. It says success true. Now let's try this. Bad credentials. What? Let's debug it. So we go here. I wonder if I got my. I wonder if I can set breakpoints here. Oh well, I'm not gonna spend any time setting up the debugging stuff right now. Okay, so we get down to here. We need to find out. I want to find out if there's a user or not. So let's dump and die our user. No, so I must have the email wrong in my post. It's not finding. Oh, I did Tony Doc Parham. So stupid. Let me fix that here. All right, there's our user. So let's get rid of that dump and die. And let's see what we get now. All right, cool. When I send the correct credentials now, that password and this email, I get back true, and then I get back a token, which this token is going to be stored on our front end and will be used for our request going forward. Yeah, but this token here is not what's obviously going to be the token. That was just to show us if we made it past validation or not. So with that, I'm pretty happy with that. I'm gonna go ahead and save these requests so that they're in Postman. So there's just a couple more things that we need to do. Number one, we need an endpoint to, if someone clicks, they forgot their password, I want them to be able to enter their email, and then it send them an email and sets a password reset token, sends them a link, and when they go, it will use the same endpoint to reset their password. So with that, I think we are going to implement a time limit maybe like 15 minutes or something like that on these tokens, so that these tokens don't just live forever in the database. Just to give, they should have enough time to get to their email, click reset link, and it expire. Now, if someone's trying to do some funky things where they're trying to hack into someone's account and they click reset password, the email will get sent and a token will be generated, but they only got 15 minutes to try to brute force that token in order to figure out what that user's token would be. So with that security consideration in mind, not only are we going to give that a short-lived token, what we probably also want to go ahead and do is generate a more secure token than just a hash of their user ID and the timestamp. So I'm going to think through that a little bit. We'll probably just generate some sort of random string with that as well. Yeah. And I think for our token, I think what we'll do is we can either send a JWT token back to the front end, which I know that I'm in the minority here, but I like JWT token as a technology. It's pretty cool. I don't necessarily trust JWT all that much. I don't have any really good hard evidence why I shouldn't trust it. And when I say I don't trust it, some people take a JWT and they're like, hey, it's issued by the right server, it's not expired, so whatever data is inside of it is good to go, and they don't do any more database lookups. What I will typically do if I use a JWT is I actually create another token and I put it inside of that JWT token, and then when the JWT token comes back, I actually look up in the database just to make sure that that token is generated and is in the database. I know that that's probably overkill, but I would rather be overkill in some situations than not have enough security in place. It just feels weird to me to trust something that comes back from the front end without doing any sort of validation on it at all. So that's what I mean when I say I don't trust JWT. There's nothing wrong with JWT, it's fine. But I don't know if I'm going to use it on this project just because I don't really think I need it on this project. I'm probably just going to issue some sort of access token, some sort of bearer token, and then that bearer token will come back in the authorization header. And I will do a login with middleware, and we will check the routes based on that login. And that's how I think I want to do that. The last thing I think we should do real quick, one thing we haven't accounted for yet is people could add a space at the end of this or at the end of their password and things like that. So we're not trimming any of these values yet, and we're not cleaning those values. So we can do that really quick, I think, unless I get confused. But I think what I want to do here, let's go look at Slim's documentation, Slim4 documentation, and let's look at their middleware stuff, on how their middleware works. So the way middleware works with Slim is it goes to the middleware twice. I'm not sure exactly if this is what Express does with Node.js, but basically it goes backwards. It goes through your outer middleware and then the next middleware and then gets to the app, and then when it does the response, it goes back through the middleware on the way out in the opposite direction. And so what I'd like to do is set up a middleware function that cleans the response. So they give us some examples here. So let's go ahead and let's go and create a middleware folder that we can store these in if I haven't already. All right, so let's create middleware. And the reason I'm doing this with middleware is like it's pretty nice because like we won't have to remember to trim this stuff on anything else. It's just gonna happen every single time a request comes in, and then we're gonna run that through. Man, I'm so stupid. I've had a long day, guys. Let's add a new package. We're gonna call this middleware, and we'll add a file in here, and we're gonna call this clean request. And I'm gonna give this a namespace of app middleware, like that. Now the middleware, I mean, it's just gonna be a class, and we're just gonna call it clean request. And then we can, they're shown in the documentation to use a magic method called invoke. So this is invocable right here. What did I do wrong? I always do that. Public function invoke, I think. Well, you still have to spell function right, believe it or not. All right, there we go. And so what they're doing is they're adding the middleware right before this runs here. And then what they're doing here is, here's an example of a class-based one. In the invoke, there is a request and a handler, and it returns a response. So we can go ahead and kind of set that up just like that. So let's go ahead and I'm going to copy this stuff here for the imports. And this is going to return a response. Let's take that care of that really quick. And this is going to take a request that we're going to call request. I'm just going to do REQ though. And the second parameter is going to be a request handler. Pass that into a variable called handler, like that. Okay. Okay. Okay, so this is going to complain right now because we're missing a return statement. We've told it that it's going to return a response. So we'll get to that. So let's look at an example here. They have the response comes in and they handle the request. And then they're writing to the body and they're creating a new response from that. And this is just a silly example because what they're doing is they're just adding the word before and then they're adding the word after, and they're doing it that way to show you kind of how the middleware works. But what we want to do, and it's shown here that you can add middleware to the route, but also we can add the middleware right before the run method too. So we can do that later. So let's try this out. Let's see if I can figure this out. Okay. Ultimately we're going to handle a response. So let's go ahead and grab the requested body. So that's going to be data, and that'll be equal to request get parsed body, like that. So now that we have an array of all of our data that's being posted here, let's see, we might need to do something like an array walk recursive, something like this. Data and then we give it a callback function. And this callback function, the input parameter's value being the first and the key to the index is the second. Okay, value. I don't know if this is the way I want to do this or not. Let's see if we pass this by reference. Let's see if we can do it this way. We'll say value is equal to, and the first thing I'm gonna try is just trim value. The problem with that is if you pass a null into this now, you're gonna get an error. So we're just gonna do a null coalesce and we'll give it an empty string. I think that should work. Let's dump and die value here. I'm sorry, let's dump and die data. And then inside of our public index, we have our app run. Let's go ahead and use the app middleware clean request. And right here, let's do app add. How do they do it? Add. And then we'll just run new clean request here. Let's see what happens. I might have it all screwed up because that's how I rolled. All right, let's see. First, let's just see if we get anything. Uncaught type error, array walk recursive, argument 1 must be an array, and we pass null. Get parsed body. Well, let's try. Let's look at data. I don't know why that would be null. What in the world? Oh, okay. So this is where it comes in. I think this is what's happening. So remember how I told you the order matters on the middleware? And I think it's because this parsing middleware, body parsing middleware is happening up here, and then this is below it. So let's try to put this above that and see if that works. I don't know that it will, but let's try it. Okay, so now we have data, and let's, now that we have that, let's go to our request here. Let's get rid of this one. And then let's see. Let's see what the trim value is. So I'm going to add a bunch of blank space here to Tony. And let's see if it's trimming that. It does look like it is. So let's, just to verify that, let's not trim it and see what happens. Yeah, so now we got this blank space there. So our data is being trimmed here. The next thing that I want to try to do, I'm going to check a couple things. Let's go ahead and pass one more kind of complex piece in. Let's do meta, and let's pass this in as an object that has a few more things. So like we'll just say meta data, and inside of here, Let's do trim me, something like that. Let's post that and see what we get back. Yeah, so meta is an array, the data, and it is trimming that. So that array walk recurse is working really nicely, I think, for this. We may have to change that, but I kind of like that. Now, the last thing I'd like to do besides just trimming this is I want to go ahead and run this through HTML entities. So let's do HTML entities, and the string is going to be the first response from this trim. The next thing that we're going to do though is we're going to pass a flag of int quotes here. So int quotes, and then we're going to say UTF-8. And make sure that this is UTF-8. We're going to be dealing a lot with JSON, and JSON can only decode UTF-8 characters. So that's that. So let's now see if we can pass in. Okay, so this is still working. Let's pass in some sort of script tag here. Window.alert works, something like that. We're gonna need to do something like that. We'll send that. Yep, and now we have when we get data passed in, it's gonna run int quotes on the input, and it's going to trim it. So I feel really good about that. So I consider that to be sanitized enough as far as the middleware goes. If we need to do anything further in the future, we can. Okay, so we have that now. So now we got to make sure that this is getting to our actual routes, right? So what we need to do here is we need to be returning the response. So I think the way we do this is we do response is equal to the handler. That's a function. Handler handle. And we pass the request into that. And I think we can do request with body. And I'm going to pass that data object into that body. Request with body data. And then we're just going to return the handler. Array. Do I need to do with parsed body? All right, let's try that and see what we get. But in order for us to see that working, we need to go into, let's go into our auth controller here, and right here we'll just dump and die data inside of this. Okay. No, this isn't working. So I'm doing something wrong with the response of this. At least I think that's what I'm doing wrong. Well, this is creating a new response. let's see, slim middleware to manipulate the request body. Request with parse body. That's what we tried. With parse body, we're passing body in. We know body's correct. Let's see. The response is the handler. Oh, we have to override this, I think. Request is equal to request with parse body. Let's try that. Might have been close. Where's Postman? Come back, Postman. Boom. Okay. Now we are cooking with fire. This is all trimmed up. It's sanitized. Feeling good about that. And that is making it to our controller, so we know that we have the correct order for our middleware. And I think we're good with that. I'm going to leave that clean request middleware going, and we're going to be using middleware also for once we have the login token to make sure that the auth user is added to the request, and we can use that everywhere. But all right, guys, with that, I'm going to go ahead and call it a night. I think we made good progress tonight. We got a lot more of our requests, and more importantly, not just, I know this has taken a long time to kind of build just a registration and login system, but we're doing more than just that. I mean, we're setting up our framework. We're getting a lot of our code in place. And once we kind of get through these first basic, like harder, not harder, but these initial requests, eventually we're going to have all the boilerplate and the logic done that we need, so that once we get going, I mean, we can write endpoints super fast. We're kind of front loading a lot of the work with writing the middleware and the validations and all of that stuff early on. But yeah, if you guys wouldn't mind, just go ahead and give me a like and a comment and a subscribe. That'll help me out a lot. If you've learned anything, or if not, let me know. But yeah, just thought you guys might like to join me while I build this, and you can kind of see how my brain works and how I put together software. But yeah, have a wonderful night, guys.